What do you get when you mix lavish Russian aristocratic parties, duels that nobody seems to win, French invasions, a confused count searching for the meaning of life, and enough family drama to put modern soap operas to shame? You get Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, a novel so massive it makes your average book look like a mere pamphlet. But don't let the size intimidate you. Behind those 1,300 pages are stories of love, betrayal, philosophy, and history that still feel very human today. And trust me, once you enter this world, you'll never look at French lessons, military campaigns, or duels the same way again. So buckle up. Let's dive into the grand chaos that is War and Peace. Volume 1. Meet the Families. The novel opens with the dizzying social whirl of Russian aristocracy, where everyone seems more concerned about who's hosting the next party than the fact that Napoleon is preparing to march across Europe. We meet the Bolkonskys' Prince Nikolai, the strict father who would make any child regret ever smiling in the wrong direction. His son Andrey, a man constantly looking for meaning beyond court life. And his daughter Maria, pious, shy, and perpetually the target of marriage schemes. Andrei's wife, little Princess Liza, is more adorable than practical, and Tolstoy wastes no time in letting us know this won't end happily for her. Then we move to the Rostovs, lively, lovable, and almost perpetually broke. There's Natasha, who has the energy of 10 people and the romantic impulses of 20. Nikolai, the dashing but reckless son. Petya, the baby of the family. And Vera, the eldest daughter who seems to exist mostly to remind us how boring some people can be. And finally, the Kuragins. Prince Vasily Kuragin is a schemer of the highest order. He's constantly trying to marry his children off to the richest target available. His daughter Helene is beautiful, but about as deep as a saucer. And his son, Anatole? Well, Anatole is the kind of man who could ruin your life in one evening and still look good doing it. At one point, Prince Vasily even tries to marry Anatole to Princess Maria for her father's fortune, but the plan backfires. Somewhere in this swirl is Anna Mikhailovna, a woman with the cunning of a fox, and her son Boris, who has mastered the art of opportunism. And towering over them all is Pierre Bezukhov, the illegitimate son who unexpectedly inherits a fortune, becomes Count Bezukhov, and instantly becomes the most eligible bachelor in Russia. Unfortunately, he's also socially awkward, idealistic, and in way over his head. So, Volume 1 is essentially aristocrats being aristocrats, plotting marriages, drinking, gossiping, and occasionally pretending to worry about Napoleon. Volume 2, Death, Love, and a Duel. Prince Andrey returns home from war just in time for tragedy. His wife Liza dies in childbirth. Her death plunges him into grief, but it also strips away his illusions about life at court. Meanwhile, Pierre, our newly minted count, marries the beautiful Helene. On paper, it's a great match. He's rich, she's beautiful. In reality, it's a disaster. Helene quickly proves herself unfaithful, taking up with Pierre's friend Dolokhov. Gossip spreads, and Pierre, pushed beyond his limits, challenges Dolokhov to a duel. Both men survive, but Dolokhov walks away with a bullet wound, and Pierre walks away with more questions than answers about life. Pierre is a man searching for meaning everywhere but finding it nowhere. He tries Freemasonry, hoping it will reveal the secrets of existence. For a while, he's inspired by their ideals, but soon realizes that even the Freemasons don't practice what they preach. Disillusioned, he spirals back into drinking and gloom, stuck between his loveless marriage and his endless existential questions. On the brighter side, Natasha Rostov bursts into the scene of Prince Andrei's grief, and against all odds, she revives his spirits. He falls in love again, and for a brief, shining moment, life seems to offer hope. But Tolstoy being Tolstoy, disaster is never far away. Natasha, in her impulsive and youthful way, falls prey to Anatole Kuragin's charms. She breaks off her engagement to Andrei after nearly eloping with Anatole, a scandal that nearly destroys her reputation. Pierre, caught between his affection for Natasha and his friendship with Andrei, retreats from Moscow to Petersburg, once again leaving his life unresolved. Volume 3. Tolstoy gets philosophical. If the first 2 volumes gave us drama and heartbreak, the third volume pauses the story for one of Tolstoy's trademark philosophical detours. Tolstoy launches into a meditation on history, human nature, and the illusion of control. He argues that history isn't shaped by the will of great men, but by countless small actions of ordinary people. When we look back, he says, we pretend to see cause and effect, but really history is too complex to pin down to single explanations. Reading these chapters is like sitting through a lecture where your professor is both brilliant and slightly condescending, but you can't stop nodding along. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, in his Black Swan theory, would later echo Tolstoy's point. Humans are terrible at predicting events, and even worse at understanding them afterward. So in short, history isn't about Napoleon or Tsar Alexander making choices. It's about thousands of tiny, chaotic moments piling up into something unstoppable. Volume 4 and the epilogue bring us to the themes of war, death, and peace. As Moscow falls to Napoleon, Petersburg society seems, well, strangely insulated. The aristocrats continue their parties as though denial could stop the French right at the gates. But soon enough, the reality of abandonment sinks in, and with it, despair. Meanwhile, Pierre, ever the accidental adventurer, ends up in the thick of things. While trying to help a woman being robbed by a French soldier, he's arrested, accused of arson, and nearly executed. He's spared at the last moment, but not before witnessing the brutal deaths of others. Imprisoned by the French, he undergoes a transformation. In captivity, Pierre finally begins to understand life's fragility and simplicity. Salvation comes when he's freed by Denisov's guerrilla unit, aided by none other than Dolokhov. But not everyone makes it. Young Petya Rostov, too eager to prove himself, rides into battle with reckless enthusiasm. Against Denisov's warnings, he charges forward and is killed. A gut-wrenching moment that leaves the Rostov family shattered. Prince Andrey, too, is fatally wounded in battle. In his final days, he forgives Natasha, who tends to him with deep remorse. Their reconciliation is tender but tragic, as Andrey succumbs to his wounds. By the time peace returns, Russia has been scarred. But for Pierre and Natasha, a new beginning is possible. The epilogue shows them together with a family, suggesting that even in the ruins of war, life continues.
Wow, very nice.
And that, in its broad strokes, is War and Peace. Leo Tolstoy's sweeping epic, first published in 1869, and in this case, translated by Anthony Briggs in the Penguin edition. At nearly 1,400 pages, it's not just a novel, it's a world you live in. What strikes me most about War and Peace is not just its size, but its humanity. Yes, it's a novel about battles, politics, and philosophy, but at its heart, it's about people stumbling through love, loss, and meaning. Pierre, with his endless search for truth, feels timeless. Who hasn't questioned the point of it all? Natasha embodies the innocence and impulsiveness of youth, full of mistakes, but also full of life. And Prince Andrey represents the disillusioned man of action, longing for something beyond the noise of society. The themes ripple throughout the book: history versus free will. Tolstoy constantly challenges the idea that individuals shape history. Instead, he shows how powerless even the most powerful are against the tide of events. Through Pierre's journey, we see the existential struggle of finding purpose in a chaotic world. Whether it's Natasha's redemption after betrayal or Andrei's final reconciliation, the novel insists on the possibility of forgiveness, even in the shadow of death. Far from glorifying it, Tolstoy depicts war as confusion, suffering, and chaos, a contrast to the clean narratives we often impose on history. Tolstoy doesn't just give us characters, he gives us mirrors. We see ourselves in their doubts, their foolishness, their triumphs, and that's why War and Peace endures. Leo Tolstoy, who lived from 1828 to 1910, was not just a novelist, but a thinker, philosopher, and reformer. Born into aristocracy, he lived a life of contradictions. Once a soldier, later a pacifist, once a noble, later renouncing wealth. His works, especially War and Peace and Anna Karenina, cemented him as one of the greatest novelists in history. Later in life, his religious and moral writings influenced figures like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Tolstoy wanted literature to reflect life honestly, without artifice, and War and Peace is the ultimate expression of that vision. It's not just fiction, it's history, philosophy, and humanity woven together. So if you're ready to tackle a book that is as sprawling as it is rewarding, dive into War and Peace. It's not just a story of war or peace, It's the story of life itself, in all its messy, beautiful contradictions. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.